Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Super-Fanta-Fi. This being a show where we talk about TV shows of the supernatural, fantasy, and/or science fiction or genre. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the latest episode of Supernatural. A lot of interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. Well, obviously picking up where the last episode left off, we have Chuck has Eileen and Sam. And obviously, I kind of figured, like, Eileen coming back to life, I figured all this had to be part of Chuck's Grandmaster plan. I figured, like, Eileen's return would end up with, like, maybe Eileen being taken away from Sam. It's like, oh, give him what he wants, make him happy, and then strip that happiness away. Part of, like, the tragic tale that God was concocting. So I figured that's where it was. So I wasn't too surprised when it's like, oh, he had a hand in all. But, I mean, I think I was surprised to find out that he had such a hand in it. Because it's oh, here's a little, it's like, oh, I gave you half the spell, but I knew you'd get the other half of the spell, Sam. So it's like he nudged here and there. It wasn't as, like, hands-on as I probably would have thought, but it was still, it's just interesting. And like I said, it just makes sense. And it was also a means of keeping an eye on Sam because of the wound, he doesn't have full power, so he's not as omniscient as he was before. Still is to a certain extent, but Sam, because of the wound and everything, made him kind of a blind spot, so Eileen acted as a means of keeping an eye on Sam. And so he's trying to, like, poke into the wound to see if he can find something. But obviously the wound isn't kind of magical because the bullet is actually made out of Sam's essence, so it's like there was no actual bullet. It was just kind of almost like an energy bullet. So, and the wound was magical, so it just kind of get reflected onto Sam, so there wouldn't be any. But I guess, Chuck was so adamant about trying to find something in there, having Eileen dig into the wound, but nothing will come of it. But Sam, I like that, where Sam is like, go ahead and let me bleed out. All you're going to have to do is just bring me back anyway to, like, kind of fulfill what you want. So it's like, because if you kill me, there's not going to be any, like, means of, like, I think it was kind of like if Sam died, like, would the wound close up, or would it kind of die with Sam and Chuck will forever be stuck the way he is? What was also interesting is, like, Chuck kept hesitating. I was like, does the wound scare you or something? But then Sam was like, oh no, you've blinked people way out of existence and stuff like that, but you've never actually gotten your hands dirty. It's different kind of doing things up close and personal. And even Eileen calling him pathetic pushed him. I was like, in that instant, I was like, oh, please don't tell me you're going to kill Eileen. Please, 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 please. But it's like, no. Once again, he's got his plan, so he gets her to dig into the room. All while this is happening, Dean wants to come and rescue them, but Cass is like, don't be stupid. You go in there, we're unprepared. All what's going to happen is Chuck is going to kill us. Where we are right now, even with him being in a weakened state, he can still kill all of us. There's no good ending to this. We go get that Leviathan bloom, and then we come back. So they go in there, and I even love Dean being like, we should split up. Once again, Cassio's like, once again, that's a stupid idea. I love that Cassio's not taking Dean's shit, because to be fair, it's like, Dean has been so pissed at Cassio, and Cassio's pissed at Dean for being still pissed at him. It's like, so it's kind of like their relationship still ain't 100% fixed, despite them working together. It's complicated, so. And I love that they're walking by that body, and it's like, I think we've already been here before. And Cassio's like, that's a different dead body. And then Dean looks at it, and they end up getting attacked by a Leviathan, but they take him down. And I love it being like, yeah, you were totally right, Cassie. That totally is another dead body. But it's interesting, like, the whole Leviathan bloom situation. I think that's fascinating. Basically, it can only be found from their deaths, but it's something that kind of has to basically fertilize and bloom on its own for like a month or so. Like, it takes a while for it to kind of bloom, which I'm wondering where all those dead Leviathans from. I guess, like, maybe other stuff in there killed the Leviathans, because there are other supernatural things running amok in there. But I'm thinking it might also be like, maybe there are Leviathans that might have gotten killed the last time they were in, because the last time they had anything to do with Purgatory, I've forgotten a lot of that, because they reference, like, Benny's back here. I'm like, when the hell did Benny get back into the Purgatory? Because I was thinking, like, the last time I remember, and I brought this up before, was like the whole situation. What was his great-great-great-granddaughter, and there was that hunter that was crazy. It was a little mad, but he was like, oh, we got to stop Benny. He's a monster, like, he's a vampire. You can't trust a monster and all that, which is a complicated thing, considering the fact is, Sam and Dean have, friends who are supernatural creatures, like Garth, for example. But it's that whole thing of, like, okay. So I was like, so when the hell did Ben? And it's like, oh yeah, Benny sacrificed himself to get Sam under. I was like, I don't remember that at all. So that's kind of a blank spot. But it's like, oh, where is Benny? Oh, Benny ended up getting ripped apart by the vampires, which is interesting because like we saw him in like one of those other alternate things of like, oh, this is how their story could end, and Benny was there by Dean's side. It didn't seem like he was a vampire. It actually seemed like he was human. So maybe at some point he found there was some cure. That's why I was like, huh, that's interesting. But it's kind of sad to know that Benny's dead because Benny was Sam. He became like Dean's brother. He was like another one of his best friends. And as they're walking and everything, it's the whole thing about because the whole situation got Castiel thinking about more so than anything Jack, but Dean was thinking like, oh, you were apologetic about things going down the way they did. He thought it was like, oh, for everything else, and he's like, dude, I've apologized all I could. The fact of the matter is, it's like you were still angry at me. He's like, well, you walked away. It's like, and you didn't stop me. I literally couldn't be around you anymore because no matter how much I said I was sorry, you were still angry at me and it wasn't going to go away. So like, what was the point of staying around? And you at like, oh, I just up and left you. You could have stopped me, but you chose not to because you didn't want to. So it kind of started ruminating in Dean's head. And lo and behold, there's a whole, trap. They want Castiel because Eve wants him, and I'm like, okay, which I think I've completely forgotten about Eve. I don't even remember what she looks like in the show. I was like, Eve. Like I said, I think I've forgotten so much more about the show than I thought I did. Because once again, there's like storylines that'll pop up years later. I'm like, I don't remember that. It's been so damn long. Because like I said, I've talked about it before. I've literally only seen every season of Supernatural once, and that was each year that the new seasons that came out. I watched them live, so like I haven't seen the only seasons that were the exceptions were 10 and 11 because I got 2 seasons behind, but then I caught up, so it's like those are the only times like I've not been current with the show, so all I'm saying is my memory is very like lapse a little bit with a lot of the show, and well, not a lot, but some of the show, and a lot of this is kind of falling in that category. But Castiel gets taken. I was a little suspicious later on when Castiel just kind of pops up. I'm like, something's up with that. Is that like, is he actually secretly possessed by a Leviathan or something? That'd be kind of interesting again if he ended up swallowing more Leviathans again. I was like, is it that, or maybe I don't know, like maybe it's something pretending to be Cass. I wasn't sure, but then it repeated what Dean had said, and like because Dean was worried that like he wanted Cass to know. He's like because the fact is I think he figured like I might have to go back on my own. This kind of, but I don't know. It didn't seem like I guess they were near enough the portal, but I guess it's like I'm gonna have to come back and rescue. But I guess it's like if I don't get the chance, I got to say this now. He prays to Castiel and tells him like, I'm sorry. Like I don't know what it is, but anytime things go wrong, I get angry. And the fact of the matter is, like you're my best friend, but I couldn't forgive you. And of course I do forgive you. I just couldn't. I was so mad. I just couldn't admit that I was wrong. And the fact of the matter is, I just obviously, if Dean could, he wish he could date that, because once again, it's like Castiel is his best friend, so it's like, of course I forgive you. And I was like, it's very heartwarming. And then Dean was like, oh, I got to tell you something, but Castiel's like, no, I heard you, and I got the thing, so let's go. And I'm like, okay. So all the while this is happening, but when they get back, Sam is being shown. Chuck realizes that he can't break Sam because Sam is too hopeful, despite what he's doing, because there's some part of Sam's soul, just essence, being like, we can win. He believes it so wholeheartedly that it's keeping Chuck from being able to kind of break him and completely seal the wound. His sheer will of strength and hope is keeping the wound open and keeping Chuck weak. So he finds a way around it, and that's the whole thing. He ends up showing Sam the future, gives him a pocket watch that fast forwards time to let him see like what his future holds. And it's hard to say whether it is BS or not. Like, despite his machinations and manipulations and stuff like that, usually the way Chuck kind of goes about things, it's pretty truthful, I feel like, to a certain extent, even, like I said, despite the manipulation and stuff like that. So he starts showing Sam the future, and the future, I mean, at first it seems nice. It's like, oh, him, Cass, Dean, and Eileen, and they're like, oh, it's all good. They're chilling, they're kind of like drinking beer and stuff. Then Jody calls. Turns out her and Claire dealt with vampires. Claire died. And obviously, and then slowly but surely, doesn't see all of it, but it becomes a losing fight. They had sealed away God, but it didn't stop everything else. God wasn't the end-all, be-all. Their job as hunters still continued. It wasn't a thing of defeat God, we stopped everything. It's no, everything kept going. So the monsters kept winning more and more. They've lost so many people that, they were once their friends. At some points, they referenced losing Cassiel, and it's wait, what? And even at one point they referenced Cass, ever since Cass got the mark, I was wait, the mark is in the mark of Cain? I was wait, how the hell did that happen? And I was and it's I had to bury him in, a certain box or whatever. I was dude, that's wow. So, and it's just at one point, they end up losing Eileen at one point, and obviously, Dean, because it's so crazy, because especially for Sam, he's flipping through these times and seeing every time he's flipping forward, they've lost more and more. It's to the point that Dean's completely lost hope. It's we're done. It's a losing battle. The hunters are friends that aren't dead, got smart and just left this whole thing behind. So it's the world is overrun with monsters, because for them it's we're fighting these monsters and killing them, but we're not saving people. At least before we can at least save some people, it's almost we're not saving anyone. It's just we're just too late. The monsters are just grown too strong. But Sam didn't want to give up, but Dean was you're literally spiraling towards death, just like Jody is, because of the whole Claire situation. And it turns out it's not just Claire. It seems Donna, I'm assuming Patience, and Alex, because she said all the girls, so I'm assuming all of them died as well, kind of leaving Jody all alone, which is Jesus. And for Sam, he was kind of doing the same thing. He needed he needed to fight, because it's the only thing, it's you're secretly looking for death because of, losing Eileen, which now that sinks in of wait, for Sam, it's I lost Eileen too, so. And like I said, Sam wasn't 100% buying it. Much like the audience, he's kind of feeling nah, this can't be real. This got to be you just messing with my head, trying to make me lose hope. It's all right, you don't believe me? Keep looking forward. And obviously, at one point, he convinces Dean, hey, we need to go deal with these, vampires. Either you did help me with it, or I'm going to go on my own. It's fine, I'll go with you. So Dean reluctantly went along, and it's crazy. And then all of a sudden, he goes, because each time it's from 2020 to 2021 to 2022, and it seems the clock stops at December 9th, 2022, and it's oh, it doesn't go any further. At that moment, it's that must be when Sam dies, which, obviously Sam and Dean have died multiple times before. Obviously that was Billy's issue. Definitely Billy's issue was the fact is that they constantly skirted death before, just because death always kind of cut them a little slack, because he found them interesting and everything. But it seemed this was a permanent death. And then we kind of find out, we see them kind of hold up, and it's all right, some monsters coming after you. And it's Jody and Bobby, because people showed up with guns. I'm are those hunters? I'm what did they do? And it's they became vampires. It's oh, which, as you know, wouldn't be the first time for Dean, crazy enough, obviously. But they've become monsters, and now they're being hunted by the people they once considered friends. And now it's it didn't go further, because maybe things went further with Dean, but it went as far as Sam's life would go, and that was literally ending with Bobby. Jody had shot him, and Bobby chops his head off, and it's that's it. And it's wow. And the twisted thing is, you even have Chuck being actually, I'm actually kind of sad that things ended that way. And he's what? It's because for him, it's yeah, I don't that's kind of he's that's a bummer of an ending. I didn't want you and your brother to go out like that as monsters. So even I don't want things to end this way. Obviously it's you think, but taking me down oh, it's just going to end everything, but it's not. Because you're forgetting about one thing. You're taking me out, sure, but you forgot one key element throughout this. And Sam was the monsters. Yeah, without me here, the fact is the monsters just grow stronger. Elmo's looking at himself as I'm kind of the bright light that keeps monsters at bay. It's monsters kind of do their thing, because it almost seems well, he's kind of implying well, the monsters kind of fit the script that I kind of put in motion. But the fact of the matter is, kind of without me to kind of play the script into a certain, I'm kind of holding back all the monsters to kind of play this certain script. But it's without me here, they kind of run rampant, and basically everyone you love and care about dies. So is that better than what I have planned for you? And you can see it kind of taking its toll on Sam. And when Dean and Cass do show up, and the time comes. I even love that Dean punches, Chuck, and he's like, I had to. And it's like, and Chuck's kind of like, I know. And it hits Dean back and it's like, I had to. But when the time came, Sam couldn't do it because of fear of like that future he saw, because he does believe, Chuck, that he couldn't bring himself to do it. And because Sam lost hope, like that will wasn't holding that wound open anymore. He didn't have any fight left him in that moment, and the wound closes and Chuck gets his full power back. Now, we learned some really interesting things, like all those visions we kept seeing, because I thought it was like, okay, Chuck's working on a script of like the ending he's making. He's like, no, never mind. He's scrapping ideas, this, and that. It's like, that's what I thought. But it's not the case at all. What Sam kept seeing, he's like, those weren't like, my like how I'm going to end this. What he saw was my script for all the other Sam and Deans. Those were all the like Sam and Deans across the multiverse of like how their stories were going to end. That's what's really, and so that adds that perspective of like, oh wow. So because those were memories, it's like, oh, this is how things end for the other Sam and Dean. It's kind of like the other Sam and Deans always try to put up a fight, but at the end of the day, their stories still end up the same. They still, despite trying to fight me, kind of give in and end up becoming fit the ending I end up writing. And I think that's going to be so interesting because like I'm curious, did his ending, the one that Chuck has made for this Earth, because he once again always talked about the fact that Sam and Dean are his favorite, but it's like, what does that mean in the grand scheme of things? Like, will he take any elements from those endings and will we see them kind of come back? I mean, we already see the future kind of going in that certain direction because, like, Cassio has the mark. But to be fair, Eileen isn't there. We'll get to that soon enough. But, so things are already different, yet kind of still heading in that similar direction from the future. So it's like the future is still malleable, but Chuck is still around. He's going for now, but he can always come back to kind of shake things up. So it's like, what's that? I'm curious to see what Sam does with all. I wonder, like, all the people he cares. Like, is he going to check on, like, next episode? Are we going to see him checking in on Jody and the girls and Donna? Like, I'm curious about that. But that might be a situation. I'm curious what Patience coming in. Her being a having her abilities and everything. I wonder will that kind of come in handy. And also, like, the Dark Kaya thing. Once again, we have not seen Dark Kaya since she gave up her spear back in season 4. Was it 13 or 14? That was 14, right? I believe so. Yeah. So it's like, I don't know, like, what's going to end up, happening in that regard. Like, beyond that, like, whether that's, I would assume this being the final season and everything, they'll probably do something with that. We'll see. But, yeah. Eileen, it's kind of, I guess, a mutual thing, but Eileen decides to leave because she can't really trust herself, because it's like, how much does she know, like, what's happening between her and Sam is real? The fact is, Chuck always kind of has, like, control over her, so it's kind of like, I can't do anything, but, she's like, I don't know what's real, and Sam and her kiss, and he's like, I know that's real. So for now, they're going their separate ways, and, it was pretty badass, though, that Dean ended up standing up to, despite Sam being kind of hopeless at that moment. Like, Dean stood up and was like, the fact of the matter is, we're not going to play into you. We will find a way to kind of stop you, So, which is obviously mirror images to, like, saying, like, a few years later, like, Dean is, like, literally in the same situation that Sam's in right now. He lost complete hope, So, it's interesting to see things so opposite parallel. We'll see, whether or not that keeps up or not. So, but now it's the whole thing of like, well, they can't kill Chuck and they can't imprison him. So it's like, what are we going to do? It's like, we're going to have to find some other way, because Sam did say, like, I believed what Chuck showed me, and Dean's not going to hold him against me. He's like, I think for him is like the whole making up with Cass made him kind of see this thing of like, if you say that, then I believe you. So it's going to be interesting to see what ends up happening, especially with the little stinger at the end, because we have not circled back to this since season 14's finale, and that's Billy and Jack in the empty, and it's like, she's like, it's time. So I'm assuming Jack is supposed to be the blind spot, because I guess Billy sees, because what did, once again, what did Death say many years ago? He will one day reap God. And it's like, because I remember it was like Sam or Dean, or it might have even been both, being like, wait, what do you mean reaping God? It's like, yeah, even God will eventually die, because I've referenced that earlier, I think this season, so, or maybe even last season, but it's like, okay, so it is possible, and I guess Jack's going to play a role in that, because, I mean, Billy's seen people's books, I'm assuming has she seen Chuck's, I'm curious, like, because she's definitely up to something now. What exactly? I don't know. Her kind of coming and going in the empty, I think, is kind of interesting. Like, I feel like, how did you manage that? I feel like, because I'm surprised too, because we haven't seen the empty, because it gets really pissy about people being awake, but maybe Jack's situation's a little different. But maybe Billy kind of has special access being deaf and everything, so normal rules don't apply. That's why I'm curious about what that's going to end up being. Like I said, and I guess Jack is going to be that other way. So, and what way that's all going to go down, like I said, we'll ultimately have to, wait and see where everything ends up taking us going forward with all of this. But really, that's all I want to talk about. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.